I'm very happy to be here today. I lived in Southern California for about 53 years, and now I've come back again, and it's like going back to old times, meeting people I haven't seen for so long. So, as Bruce was saying, I have been moving around the world at a great pace, but it's only because of the way I do it. I can't do it on my own with my own conscious mind or my very ancient body, but when we tune in to who we really are, because Baba himself says that not only is he God, but so is everybody else. And he calls it the God Self. So each one of us has this divine spark, or spark of divinity within us, and it's that we have to make contact with. I would like to tell you all that long ago I was one of the most shy people in this entire world, and anyone who's known me for a long time will vouch for that. And I never would open my mouth or be at all visible, because I was brought up in England by a very strict mother who taught me that children should not only be not seen, but not heard. So, what do you think Baba did? He kept pushing me in front of him and making me take the front seat wherever I was. This is the way he works. He finds out what you need, and then he proceeds to put into practice whatever will achieve his goal. And he must have seen that I couldn't speak on my own. I had to be inspired. So now it's rather different from the way most people work. I can't speak at all. It would be impossible, any more than I can write books. But I always like to explain to this, because so many people have a low self-image. They think, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not capable. But when you tune in to your real self, what Baba calls the God Self, what in the work I've been doing, I call the high C, for higher consciousness, then even if you can't do anything at all, and you know you're just hopeless, when you tune into that real part of you, then you can do anything. And I always remember a long time ago now, I said to the high C, and Baba represents our high C, I will be your instrument, yes, but, and we all have a but. I'll be your instrument, but please never, never, never ask me to talk to a lot of people. So I always like to tell people this, because it's so wonderful to be able to give people hope, and to give people the idea that with the help of the high C, or the Baba Self, or the God Self, we can be used to do anything in the world. And I'm particularly interested and excited to know that right now is when the method I've been given all these years is perhaps the most practical, because we're all facing a completely unknown future. We are all been told over and over that things are going to be rather difficult after 2012. And I've gone to so many places where people are absolutely terrified. But that's not the way I feel. I feel that we don't need to be terrified as long as we keep tuned in to our real self. And then we will be in the right place at the right time, doing whatever is necessary, instead of being scared to death and wanting to run away. In other words, don't fear the future, but look forward to it. What opportunity are we going to be given? How can we help? This is a much better stance than being scared, and so many people are scared. But as you heard with the bhajan that was just sung, why fear when I am near? Now Baba doesn't mean when he in his physical form is near, but he means the God force or that spark of divinity within us. And he's been urging us for many, many years now to make contact with that so that we can perform anything. And now as I look back, I'm really quite delighted that I was brought up the way I was, that I couldn't speak, because now I don't get in the way. The God's force, or the Baba self, or whatever you want to call it, spirit or soul, can speak through me. And this is what Baba is trying to get through to us constantly, all through the years. And I'm very much aware these days, having just come back from India, I attended his 85th birthday. I wasn't intending to go, because he had told me the last time I was there, that when I asked him when I should come back, and he said, you'll come back when you're healthy. And so I kept waiting, am I going to be healthy? I have a lot of allergies, a lot of pains. And I thought, no, I'm not ready. But it so happened that he sent me a message that I should go to the birthday. And I became extremely aware of the fact that he's not going to live forever. He's told us when he's going to die, but then he's been changing that date recently. And I looked around, and so many people were really attached to his form. And I thought to myself as I looked at this, and I looked at how fragile he is, what's going to happen when he does die, if we're still attached to the form, and we still haven't made contact with his counterpart in our hearts? And then I keep remembering that when my husband and I first went to see him in 1973, when he first saw me, he said, so, you have come at last. And I thought, well, that's a funny thing to say to me. I couldn't have gotten here any earlier. I only just heard about you in October, and this was January. What do you mean by that? And I have to confess that I was so stupid that it was not until this year that I realized that he was talking about the fact that his counterpart in my heart had been teaching me the work all this long time, long before I knew him. So now I'm really happy that I was brought up to be reassured that I couldn't do anything. I was much too stupid. Because now he can use me as his instrument, because I know full well I can't do anything of the things that I've been doing on my own. It has to be with him or with it, or whatever you want to call it, working through me. So we have to make that contact in order to be able to manage when he's gone, and this applies to all the people who know him, because many people are attached to his form, but it also is an encouragement for whatever is going to happen from 2012 on. And I do not feel that it's right for people to stir up fear about these unknown times. We don't know what's going to happen, but if we do keep in contact with the God Self, we will know what to do. And I feel that if we are really going to be practicing Baba's teachings, we should have the faith that we will be used wherever it's needed, whatever is happening in the world. Because we can all be pioneers, just like the original pioneers in this country. We can bring about the changes. And I often think that Baba sends some of his special students to areas of the world where there is no love. And not to preach to them, but just to demonstrate the love that is so lacking in the world. Because his message, or the most important part of his message, is that we must love, that our reality, our God self, is love. That when you look around at the world, there's very, very little. Most of it is what I want, what's good for me, but forget other people. The whole world, as we look around and as we see the people, it's getting more and more self-involved and less loving in every area of life. So Baba's message is extremely important right now. And he's told us that we must love other people, just as Jesus Christ said the same thing. Love one another. So this, for me, as I look at all of his teachings, is perhaps the most important. We have to develop the love that's lacking. We have to bring it into the world. We have to live according to his teachings, because we keep saying the world should change. The change is extremely important, because we realize how negative it is. But let's face it, the world is made up out of people. So it's only when the people change that the world will change. So instead of criticizing what's going on, what we each need to do is to bring our life in line with Baba's teachings, or Jesus' teachings, or Buddha's, or any of the other masters. But not just read about them, as Baba says. Don't just read about my teachings. Don't just listen to them in the discourses. Practice them. So he urges us to change the world by changing ourselves. And I have been given this wonderful method, which I didn't even realize was going to be a method. It began long ago, in the late 50s, before anyone was doing such a crazy thing. And it was with a partner, Virginia, and her daughter is here tonight and carrying on the work that her mother left long ago when she died. So I'm always very happy to meet Virginia's daughter, Peggy, again. And Virginia and I were lunching one day, and we were discussing our life together. We were both wives, and we were both mothers, and we were quite happy with those two roles. But we figured that there must be something more to life than just that. Surely there was another dimension. And then we discovered that when we had a problem, and we tried and tried and tried consciously to work out the problem, or answer the question, or solve it, we simply couldn't. And I'm sure all of you have had problems where you've tried, or decisions to make, and you just you can't get to the point. But sometimes we remembered that we would have a dream where the answer to our problem or our question was answered. Or we would wake up in the morning and that question was answered. So we discussed it together and we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if it couldn't be haphazard like that, if we could make that contact all the time. So in those days when such a thing was unheard of, we decided we would launch out on an experiment. We would meet each week, and we would ask if how we could get in touch with this inner wisdom which had been shown it to us in our lives, but only intermittently. And the experiment worked out very well. We did get in touch with this other part of our mind, which we eventually called the high C, for higher consciousness, and the whole method was forthcoming. But at that time, when we first started, we thought it was just for the two of us. So we never told anybody about it, particularly not our two husbands. My husband was a lawyer, And he wouldn't have been very happy to have his clients know that his wife was involved in such a strange activity. A friend, Virginia's husband, was a businessman, and he would have had the same problem. And so we didn't mention it for a long time. And we really, truly thought it was just for the two of us, never dreaming that it would be introduced to so many countries. But now, as I look back, I realize that it was wonderful that we didn't know where it was going, because we would have been scared to death. So now I look back and I realize that it was the Baba within, or the God Self within, or the High C, or the Christ Self, or whatever you want to call it, that was leading us all this long time. And I always like to explain that it doesn't matter what the name is that we call this inner self. It can be the real self, the high self, but it's the part of us that knows why we're here, what we need to do, and it can help us in our everyday life. So I've learned during the years to offer myself as an instrument to this higher part of my own mind, or God Self, or Christ Self, or Buddha Self, whatever you want to call it. And it doesn't matter what the name is. And I frequently will take, for instance, a rose or a flower. A rose in English it's called rose, but in other languages it's a completely different name. And so is all the other flowers. But it doesn't make any difference to the flower itself. It's still the same flower. It's still a rose, even if different names are used to introduce it. And it's the same with this God Self that we all have as our real self. It doesn't matter what name you use. It's still the same. The only important thing is to make contact with it. And we've been shown over the years many, many different ways to keep in contact. And that's the only way I can sit here and talk to you. Otherwise, I would be terrified and probably run. But when you get in contact with this God Self or High C, it's amazing what can be done through you. So we've learned not to ask God, because a lot of us have been brought up just to talk to God and ask Him to help us. But we've been taught that's not the way it should be. The way we should really be is to say, I'm your instrument. Now, you use me as you know you should use me. So we don't say, please help me to do this, or please give me this, or please don't have this happen. We're always asking. And that's not the way it should be, because then it's what we want, it's our will. So we've been shown to change it around and say, I'm your instrument. Now you use me as you know you should use me. And so that's what's happened to me. I would never, never, never have said, will you please help me to talk to a lot of people? It would have been the last thing in the world I would have thought of. But when we can't do something, then the High C, or the God Self, can use us as an instrument. So a low self-image can be a great advantage in living a much more satisfying life. So this is the teaching that we've been given in the method that's been developed in this way. And it wasn't until quite recently that I realized that it was really so similar to the teaching that Baba has been giving us all the many years that he's been in the world. And at first he asked me to keep the two things separate, to keep the method that I'd been shown separate from the Sai organization. And this is what I did. But now it looks like he wants to bring the two together, because the method that was shown to me all these years really helps us to follow his teachings. It's incredible how similar they are. to what we've been taught. So now I'm free to discuss, when I'm talking to side devotees, I'm free to discuss the fact that by using the methods that Virginia and I were taught so long ago, we can really practice Baba's teachings. It's becoming clear now. I would never have dreamed to mention the two together until fairly recently. And now I think it's the time, it's the right time, or at least that's the way it appears. So I would like to stress that everyone can and everyone will be better off if they will try to make contact with their real self and say, I would like to be your instrument. Please use me as your instrument. And then I can guarantee that you can do things you never would have thought you could have done before. Or you can be used to do things that you would know you could never have done before. Because so many people have such a low self-image. They may have been rejected as children, or maybe not loved as children, and so they feel that they're absolutely incompetent, just as I used to feel. But it's not necessary to feel that that's a problem. It can be a benefit, because when you know you can't do something, then the high C, or the God self, or the Christ self, or the Buddha self, or the Baba self can really use you as your instrument. And Baba himself is saying now, don't get attached to his form. Find my counterpart in your own heart. And that's what he said the very first time that my husband and I went to see him. In those days, he gave what he called a farewell interview. And even though I was very shy then in those days, I had the courage to ask him, now we've come to see you, now what do we do next? Do we come again, or do we just go on with our lives? And so he answered in this way. You don't, first of all, remember, you don't have to come back to see this little body, pointing to his own body. And he let that sink in. The next thing he said was, you must find my counterpart in your own heart. And then the third thing he said was, you will come back to be re-energized. So he wants us to realize that we don't need to go to India to see him in his little body, as he calls it. We don't need that. We need to go to him, or to make contact with him, to be re-energized. And by making contact with him, by talking to him, we can be re-energized, but we can also be connected to our own high C, our own God force. And if we will do that, then when whatever happens in the world, we will not fear, because he is near, or his counterpart is near, right in our own hearts. And there is, I think, a quote in the Bible, that God is closer than arms and legs, closer than and above us and below us and all around us. And this is Baba's teaching too. It's put in a different way, it's put in different words, but it's the same teaching. So I always like to give people hope, as I said. And if I, being as shy as I was, could tune into the inner Baba, or the inner God self, so can everybody. And then it makes life so completely different. As Bruce mentioned, I am 96, and I go to many different countries and give the seminars or talk about Baba. In fact, I'm leaving as soon as I get home. Just a few days later, I'm leaving for Denmark. Now, nobody could do that, but when you tune into the Baba within, or the high C, it's incredible. You can do things you never dreamed to do before. So I urge everybody to detach from the form, don't get stuck with the form, because when he dies, when Baba the form dies, and only the form will go, his real self won't. And I would like to tell you how he taught me the difference between the physical form and what I've been calling since the light body. I was with my daughter in India to see Baba, and we arrived at Whitefield, which is a smaller ashram, not right outside of Bangalore, not the main one in Puttaparthi. And he was obviously not looking well when he came out for darshan. He was limping and he was all bent over, and my heart ached. I thought, what's wrong? Something's terribly happened to him. And we discovered later that he had broken his hip, but he walked around for 18 hours with a broken hip until he was taken to the hospital. And when he was taken to the hospital, everything was cleared out, everything was closed. So there were no darshans, there was nothing going on. And one of the women there asked if I would just tune in with her and see if I could find out or help her with a question. She was a politician, and she was not sure that she should continue that work. And I said, well, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to find that out from the high sea or the Baba itself, but I'll try. And to my enormous surprise, instead of answering her question, I was given an inner vision. I knew that the hall had been completely cleared of people. There was nobody there. Nobody was allowed in. It was closed. The platform where Baba's chair was always sitting was gone. But in my inner vision, there was the chair on the platform, and on the chair was this absolutely incredible image. There was Baba himself, but around him was this astonishing light all around. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely dazzled. And it was as if he was talking in my head. And he said, this is my real self. And I thought, that's his real self? And he said, the body is not the real self. The personality is not the real self. The God self is the real self. And this is what he was showing me. And I've never forgotten it. Because then, inside my head, he was going on to explain, just as if I were hearing his voice. I very rarely have an experience like this. That's why I remember it so clearly. And the voice inside my head said, this is true of everyone. If you concentrate on this light body that I'm showing you, then you will know that you have the same light body. You also have this God self. And also everybody else does. So it was a huge help to be able to realize that yes, we are all divine. We are all God, as he says over and over and over. And I remember one very embarrassing time when my husband and I were in an interview, and there were many other people in the interview. And Baba at that time was danced in very gaily, looked around at us all with a smile, and said, any one of you know who you really are. And we all looked at one another and we thought we knew who we really are. And he said, no, you don't know. You are all God. And we all sort of shuddered and drew back. And then he pointed to me in the back as usual, Mrs. Krystal, say I'm God. Well, I was brought up in England, in the Church of England, and if I dared ever to say I'm God, I would have been beaten. And so I said, sorry, Baba, I can't. Mrs. Krystal, say I am God. Sorry, Baba, I can't. Mrs. Krystal, say I am God. So to get it over with, I said, I'm gone. That did not please him one bit. He said, louder. So I said it a little bit louder. No, louder, until I was absolutely screaming it. This is what he wants us to believe. Not that we're this body, or this mind, or this ego, or this personality, but we really are a part of God. And this is extremely hard for me to believe. But since I've been practicing more and more, asking to be his instrument, I've become a little bit more used to the idea, and it's been much easier to see that not only is that true, that I'm also God, but so is everybody else. So now I always do what he asked me to do in this vision. I think of myself, yes, that's my real self. I must be speaking, I must be working from that, not from my ego or personality. But also, it makes it so much easier to see that other people also are God, and not judge them by the personality. Because he's been accelerating our karma, he says. Because this is the Kali Yuga, the most negative of all four of the ages or the yugas, he is accelerating our karma so that we can work it out and be free from it, so that we will be able to fit into the golden age, which will be the first of all four yugas and the most positive. So it's a real benefit that we're being allowed to accelerate the karma. Because if we took all our old karma or our old negativity into the golden age, which will be the first of the new ages, we won't fit. We just won't fit. We would feel miserable because we brought all of this negativity from past lives. So he's urging us again to bear with it. Just go through all of the things that are happening and realize that he is accelerating everything. He's enabling us to go through more and more karma, get everything behind us, learn the lessons. And my big lesson in this life has been not ever to control anyone else. Because apparently, long ago, in another life, I was very controlling. So, my mother controlled me, my husband controlled me, my daughter tries to control me, my body controls me, because, as Baba says, only the hand that wrote the script is the hand, only that hand is able to erase it. So, the idea of karma has become much clearer to me. And the way I've been shown now is that we, whatever we did in the past uses our energy. We can't do anything without using our energy. And but energy is neutral, just as a lot of other things are neutral. So if we use our energy negatively, or if we use it positively, we will be having to undergo whatever we dealt in the past with other people. So supposing we use our energy with very negative thoughts about people, or very negative words, or very negative actions. It used our energy. So that energy comes back to us in exactly the same form as the way we sent it out in the first place. So if we are having problems in this life, it's because we hadn't learned yet, and we're being given a chance to learn now what we didn't learn before. So it's a golden opportunity. And it's an even more wonderful opportunity that we have Baba as an avatar, which is the supreme teacher, to come and help us with it. So, as he keeps saying, don't listen to what I say, don't read what I say, don't just think about the teachings I'm giving to you, practice them. And that if we practice one of his teachings, it can really take us a long way on our spiritual journey. And he always tells us that it's a journey from the self with a small s to the self with a big S. In other words, from our personality or our ego self or our physical self to the God self that we have within us. So this is the message he's giving us. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it's an exciting adventure when we look at it this way, instead of complaining about all the things that are happening or the things that are going to happen. If we can just offer ourselves as an instrument to Baba or to the High Sea, then we can achieve more than we ever could have achieved, but we ever could achieve with our own personality, our own limited energy. And obviously, at 96, you wouldn't expect me to have any energy, and I don't. In fact, I've been examined, and it's been decided that I have no energy, no physical energy. And I was really quite startled. But when we ask for the energy from the High Sea, it's incredible. I've always got enough. And I don't get tired at the end of the day. I sometimes work from 10 in the morning till 6 at night, giving seminars, but it doesn't. Okay, thank you. That to give me some energy. But I don't get tired, and I'm not ego involved with this. I'm astonished at it, but it's true. When you ask Baba or the High Sea or the God Force to give you the energy, and when you say yes, I will be your instrument, you always have enough, and you always know what you should be doing. You always know what you should be saying. It's an incredible adventure. It's an incredible opportunity, and I'd love to be able to tell people that it's possible, because I know perfectly well I could not live the life I'm living. I could not travel as much as I do. I could not give seminars and teaching programs. There would be no way. But it is possible if we do what Baba says we should do. Tune into him, or our High Sea, or whatever we want to call it, Christ self, Buddha self, it doesn't matter what we call it. It's easier for us to call it the Baba self, because Baba is in the world to demonstrate, and he says his life is his message, but he also says that our life can be his message too. So we are, instead of dreading the future and getting frightened about what the predictions have been telling us are going to happen, if we can just start to practice this wonderful way of living, which is an adventure in itself, then we will be ready for whatever happens, and we will be able to help those who need help at that time. So I'm always delighted to be given the opportunity to spread this message, which gives us hope rather than, and which will replace the fear that so many of us have. I've talked a long time, or at least I've been taught through a long time. Now it occurs to me that some of you may have questions, or you may want me to talk a little bit more about some aspect of Baba's teachings, or his words, or what we can learn from him. So, if there are questions, I would be delighted to answer them. Maybe Bruce can help.
There'll be cards passed around. If you could, somebody will collect the cards. If you could write them down, that would be helpful.
Oh, good. Talking about, when I'm asked to talk about Baba, it's such a huge subject, I mean, what do people want to know? I've been seeing him since 1973, and so there've been a lot of experiences. But what would be appropriate? What do you all need? What would be helpful for you all? So it's much easier when people tell me, please tell me about this, or please answer this question. Then I know what you need to know.
Phyllis, I'm going to do this at random because they're handed to me this way. The first question is, do you eat fish, chicken, eggs, cooked or raw?
What?
Do you eat fish, chicken, or eggs?
No, I'm not understanding, I'm sorry.
Do you eat fish, chicken, or eggs?
Oh, that's the first question. Well, that used to be a very embarrassing question for me, and I'll tell you why. Baba advocates a sattvic diet, and that means no flesh, not even eggs, no chicken, no fish, vegetarian. That's sattvic, that's a pure diet. And I tried very hard to keep to that for many years, and I got sicker and sicker. And then I discovered that I had O blood type, but it was negative, it was pH negative, and therefore it was very difficult to survive without flesh. Well, what happened was that my husband and I were in an interview one time with Baba, and he looked at and he turned his back on me and faced my husband. There were just the two of us. And I thought, oh dear, I've done something wrong, which was always my first thought. No, he addressed my husband, whom he always called Krystal. He said, Krystal, make sure that your wife eats fish and chicken. And I said, Baba! And he turned around and he said, you heard, he always wagged his finger at me, you heard, now go and do. And I was absolutely astonished. But I did what he told me to do. Then the next time I went to him, quite a bit later, he said he was talking to my husband and me, and he looked at me and he said, incidentally, I want you to eat eggs. Now, I don't particularly like eggs, but I thought, well, if Baba tells me to, fine. Then 2 years ago, my daughter and my other 2 grandchildren were with me in an interview, and Baba, in the middle of the whole interview, turned to me and said, I do want you to eat eggs, Mrs. Krystal, and turned to the poor lady next to me and said, no eggs for you, madam. So Baba knows what we need, and with pH, no, it's RH negative blood, it's very difficult to survive healthily without some sort of protein. So that's the answer to that question. I used to be extremely embarrassed because I didn't want to make people feel that they should all do the same thing, because Baba makes a rule for the majority of people, but he's very, very loving, and he makes special rules if he thinks the person needs them. I hope that answers the question.
The next question is, how is Baba going to stop the violence in the world, especially in Mexico?
Especially in Mexico?
How's Baba going to stop the violence in the world, especially in Mexico?
Yeah, I thought that's what she said. Why especially Mexico? I mean, look around at the world. It's everywhere. It's in this country. Well, this is what he wants the people who have come under his influence to do. Because as I said before, the world is not going to change unless the people in it change, because the world is made up of people. So as we become more loving, as we try to practice his teachings, that will begin to change the world. And he says that his life is his message, but he expects our life to be his message too. So when we start loving other people, when we show compassion, when we show interest in others, and we're not so selfish, then the world will begin to change. And he doesn't want us to preach, he wants us to have our life be the teaching. So as we live, it will gradually attract the attention of other people, and then they will want to do it too. And as more people practice love and bring more love into the world, which is so loveless right now, then the violence gradually will be reduced. And he's promised that his mission will never fail. So we have to trust that that will be the case.
Can you tell us about Russia?
And what do you need to know about Russia?
Any clarification?
I heard that you worked with Isaac Tiger in some work over Russia with Baba.
No, I didn't hear.
Did you do some work with Isaac in Russia?
Oh, I see. Well, you must have seen that little video where Isaac was giving a talk. I didn't know he'd given a talk, and as I went to different countries in the world, people would ask me, "Will you tell us how to do astral traveling?" And I couldn't imagine why they were asking me, and I said, no, even if I knew how, I wouldn't do it. It would be very dangerous. And then they said, "Oh, but you do that with Isaac Tiger." I said, "What?" No astral traveling. We did work together for the simple reason that Baba told Isaac Tiger at one time, I was not there, that he should sell all his houses, and he had several at the time, and move to Los Angeles and work with me. And I didn't know what we were going to do, and he certainly didn't. But we were able, with the help of the method that had been developed through me, to do some very interesting work. And there are many tapes made. And one time, I should backtrack a little bit, we were shown that over the world there are negative thought forms, or clouds of negativity made up of people's thoughts and feelings, and that some of them, that they hover over different countries in the world. And so we were shown how to destroy those and reintroduce more loving clouds. So this one particular time, I was shown the negative cloud over Russia. And it was so dense, and it had been accumulating for so many years that it couldn't be destroyed all at once. And so the idea that came was that I was given golden needles, and I divided them between Isaac and myself in our minds, and we were to stick these golden needles into this great big cloud, so that the energy in the cloud would gradually, slowly dissolve or be released. And that was it. So, when I heard all these stories, and I realized that he told a lot of people about that, I was wondering, what people would be thinking, because I certainly didn't want people to think that we'd been astral traveling. So I tried to write it as much as I could. And then one day, Isaac called me, and he said, "Have you seen the news today?" I said, "No. What's going on?" And he said, "Well, haven't you seen that what's happened in Russia?" And I said, "Oh, yes, of course." And he said, and he's very southern, so he always calls me girl. He says, "Now, girl, have you forgotten what we did?" And I said, "Oh, you don't think that did anything to help Russia, do you?" And he was so furious with me. He said, "You do this work, Baba helps you to do it, and then you don't even believe it?" So that was the story about Russia. And it's haunted me ever since. Wherever I go, I'm followed with that. "Will you teach us to astral travel? No. So what's next?
The next question is, I feel like I'm on a game show.
What was that?
You talk about contacting the God self within. How do I do it?
Okay. Well, we've been given many different exercises in the work to connect us to what as you know, I call the high C, one of which is the maypole. And I didn't bring my traveling maypole with me, but I don't need to, because we got a picture of Barbara here. So at the last youth conference, I don't know quite how many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I was asked to talk, and I gave my talk because it was a youth conference and I had been asked to. And then Barbara asked that I speak again. And here were all the youth and thousands of other people. And I thought, what am I going to do? I've spoken already. What am I going to do this time? So I was in my wheelchair and was wheeled up to Barbara for his blessing. And he would talk to me for a while. And then he said, and how long are you going to speak, Mrs. Krystal? And out of my mouth came, well, you should know better than I, because you're going to have to do it. And he roared with laughter. And then I went to the chair and the microphone, and I thought, what's going to happen now? I've given my talk, I have no idea what else is going to come. And all of a sudden I found that I was leading people through the maypole, but not using the maypole, using Barbara's image. And what came out was that instead of connecting to the high C via the sphere at the top of the maypole, representing the high C or the God self, I said, here is Barbara. Imagine that you have a ribbon or a wire or a ray of light between your heart and Barbara's heart. And that was the way I led them through the whole maypole. And I can lead you all through it, if you would like, so that you can get an experience of being able to make the contact, not only with your own God self, but also making the connection with Barbara, so that he who represents your God self can then use you as his instrument.
You want us to do that?
So
You want to lead them through the maypole?
Well, I was wondering whether I should answer some more questions, and then since this has come up, then I can do it at the end. Okay?
The next question is a question on healing.
It's what?
Healing? Healing like health?
Oh, healing. Uh-huh.
And the question is...
The microphone seems to distort it, so that's why I'm asking. No, it's not. No.
I'll read the question and mic it up and tell you the question.
Yeah, because it's the microphone. When you speak to me apart from it, then I can hear you. But with the microphone, it distorts it.
The question is, Baba emphasizes relying on the divine. On the other hand, he recommends the most advanced technology. Is this a contradiction?
Okay, now I can hear, because it was distorting it again. Yes.
Baba emphasizes relying on the divine.
Yes.
On the other hand, he recommends the most advanced technology. Is this a contradiction or a dilemma?
No, I don't think it's a contradiction, because not everybody is able to rely on the divine, and so he provides the methods for healing for those who need it, and he also recommends that you do, when you're ready, rely only on him. So he doesn't expect you to jump in one leap from where you are and what you do believe and what you do think to something that's so different. It's a baby step. He doesn't ever expect you to do a huge leap. Like with the Sealing on Desires program, he doesn't ask you to give up all your desires. No, only to cut out waste of money, food, time, and energy. And that's the baby steps to take us eventually to be desireless. And this is the same thing. It's a gradual training. He's very gentle and very, very, I would say, thoughtful. Okay?
If we ask God honestly a question, will He answer, and will He answer always?
Okay, that was now.
When we ask God a question, will He answer, and will He answer always?
Yes. Yes, always. But not always when you expect it or want it. It's when it's right. And here again, I can give an example. My husband and Jack Hislop were asked by Baba to form the organization in this country. And so, and only one of a couple was allowed to be part of the organization. So we wives of the organization members were allowed to sit in to a meeting, but not speak, which was quite hard for most of us. So we discovered this particular time that many of the members of the organization were at the ashram at the same time. It was unplanned. And so they all decided that they would have a little, sort of a mini meeting. And it was outside on the grass. And we all gathered around and we were all discussing some of the problems in the organization. And there was one particular person who was really quite a problem, and insisted on always being the one, that was going to decide what was going to be done. So we were all sitting there, and Baba would come in from time to time. And so one time he came in and sat down, and they were all discussing this. And in my mind was this question: how can we really tell whether we are following what Baba wants, or whether we're following what another person wants, or whether we're following what we want? I wanted to be sure that I was always following what the High C or Baba wants. And this was going around in my mind. And Baba all of a sudden pointed his finger and said, "Mrs. Krystal, you have a question." So I said, "I'm sorry, Baba, but wives aren't allowed to talk in these meetings." And he drew himself up as if he were 10 feet tall, which he has a habit of doing. It's an illusion, but it's very real looking. And he said, "Swami is telling you, now ask your question." So I asked it, and he looked around at the people and embarrassed me even further and said, "You see, it's a very good question." And then he gave me the answer, and I'll never forget it. He said, when you have a question, when you have a problem, take one of my photographs. Go to a very quiet place where you're absolutely alone, and be silent, and then from your heart, ask the question, and within 20 minutes, the answer will be coming to you. Now, my experience has been that you don't always get the answer in the 20 minutes, but it's sent in the 20 minutes. But it comes when you're ready to receive it, and when the answer to the question is ready. But he always answers, or God always answers, or your High C always answers. Okay.
One of the biggest obstacles on the spiritual path is anger and lust. How do you control
Anger
it?
and love? You see, it's distorted.
Anger and lust.
Oh, yes, now it's...
How do you control it?
Baba is often discussing two of the worst problems. I would think that anger, he always feels, is the worst of all. And I remember one time he told us that a fit of anger would use up or waste the energy that was received from 3 months of food. It's that disastrous, it's that negative. So he says, give the anger to me, or give the lust to me. But with the method that I've been introduced to, as you know, has got another way, which I think is a very simple way, and that is to find a symbol for that anger or that lust and put it in the figure 8 and then go through the cutting of the ties, and that works very well. And I'm not going to go into a description of the way you use the method because it's in the various books, but it really is amazing. And I realize more and more that this method can help us to put into practice Baba's teachings. And I think now he really seems to want to have it used. Sometimes when the karma is finished, then there will be a reversal. But you can't insist on it. You can't say, I've got to be healed. Really, all you can say is, am I ready? Have I learned the lesson? And then ask what this can teach us. Because we can learn from everyone in our life what we need to learn. We can also learn from everything that happens to us. We can also learn from the illnesses that we have. There's always a lesson. And it might be just a tolerance for other people who are sick. Or it might be patience. It might be the fact that you have to really trust and not try to get rid of the illness, but just don't let it get in the way. Because a lot of us will say, I can't do this because I've got this problem or that problem or the other problem. But we don't have to let the illness get in the way. Baba says that he doesn't feel the illness, ever. I've noticed that when I'm doing a seminar or I'm doing a single session or I'm talking like this, I don't notice any of the pains. It's a dimension on which, or a level on which you live. You can't insist on being healed, but you can overcome the control of the sickness over you. And we have a little symbol that we do, a figure 8, which helps us to stop the control of anyone or anything over us. And you can read about that in the books.
This is not a question, it's an expression of gratitude. This person says, it's not a question, but rather a thank you for your message, which has had a profound effect on me, and which I was desperately in need of. Thank you very much.
Okay, what was that?
Says, this is not a question, but rather a thank you for your message, which has had a profound effect on her.
Oh, well, thank you for your thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to answer the questions. I know I don't give the answers, but I've learned to trust. And the first time that I learned to do this was when we were at the ashram and we had an interview with Baba, and he said, "Why are you so worried, Mrs. Krystal?" And he always calls me Mrs. Krystal. "Why are you so worried? You seem to be worried today." And I said, "Well, we're leaving tomorrow and we're going to England, and I've been asked to give the very first seminar I've ever given, and I'm scared to death to talk to a lot of people." And he looked at me rather surprised, and he said, "But you talk to people all day long." And I said, "Yes, but only to one person at a time." And he said, "Yes, but if you think of it, and 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 is 1. Just concentrate on 1. So,
What wisdom can you pass on to guide women on their path to God during these times?
I can't hear again.
What wisdom can you pass on to women to guide women on their spiritual path
Okay.
during these times?
Okay. I think women have a tremendously important role because they are more capable of expressing love than men are. And the reason being that little boy babies are usually trained from the time they're born that they must never show, at least it was in my day, and I think it still is pretty much, they've got to be macho. They mustn't be feminine, they mustn't show feelings, that they mustn't be frightened, they've got to be strong. And this makes it very difficult for men to show love. They really haven't had much practice, especially if they haven't been loved by their parents, or they've been under strict control of their parents to be macho. So this is where the lust comes in, because the only thing that's left is to express their love sexually. So women don't have that problem. So, and the women are much closer to their hearts, because they are the ones that have to take care of the children. So they've been given, and when Baba says, I forget how many, what shall I say, how many positive qualities women have, more than men. I think it's 6 more than men or something like that. So they have been given more qualities, more abilities, more strengths. And so they are the ones that can teach the men. And I think that that's what's going to happen. The men are going to have to be brought up from babyhood, not to have to be macho, not to have to suppress their feelings, because we all need to express our love. And it seems tragic that this imbalance has happened in the world. And that's why the violence is everywhere so apparent.
This is sort of a follow-up. How did your relationship with your mother influence your work in helping others?
So how did your relationship with your mother influence your work in helping others?
Oh dear. Well, as I said before, I had a very, very strict and very, very controlling mother, but as I look back now, I think that was a gift, and I thought it was a curse when I was growing up. But I think to answer that question, she was a very angry woman, a very controlling woman, more controlling than anyone I've ever met. But I think that it was a benefit because I learned not to be controlling. And that was what I needed to learn in this life. You see, all of the members of every species learn how to live their daily life by copying the parents and the other adults. You watch birds or cats or dogs or any creature. The little ones always watch the parents, and the parents always show them what they should be doing. And human children do the same. But human children also have the other possibility of rebelling and doing completely opposite if the parents are showing them a very negative way. So I think what I learned from my mother was not to be like that, to be more loving and not quite so angry.
We've heard rumors, as you had said earlier, that Swami may be leaving his form sooner than planned. Has he given a specific date?
Okay.
We've heard rumors that Baba said he's going to leave his form earlier than planned. Has he been given a specific date?
No, he has not. He told the college boys not to be surprised if there would be a shorter period between his death and the birth of Premasai, his next incarnation. And then later, about a year later, he told them not to be surprised if he left earlier than he'd predicted. But he did not say when. He did not say with either one. He didn't give dates. As far as I know.
Please, what advice would you give to a young woman who wants to become a book writer?
This is a very practical question.
Oh.
What advice?
Aren't they all practical?
What advice would you give to a young woman who wants to become a book writer?
Oh. Well, the only thing I can tell you about that is to tune in or make contact with who you really are, your real self, your high C, your God self. Bob always calls it the God self. And if it's flowing, then write. If it's not flowing, don't try to write. That's my only advice, because that's the only way I could write. I couldn't have written a word without doing it that way. So that will work.
How can we differentiate between God's voice and our mind?
Mm-hmm. I heard that one. It's a question many, many people ask, and I usually say, just see what it feels like, what it sounds like. When you're getting a message or a thought, just use a measuring tape. Is it the sort of answer that you would get from the God self? Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it helpful? And that would be one way. And then I will share with you what happened to me when I asked that question long ago. I was having lunch with a friend, and as we stood on the corner of a street to go to our separate cars, it was here in California, I said to her, wouldn't it be wonderful if we got some clear sign when we were really in contact with the high C or the God force? And when I said that, I was absolutely astonished, because it was exactly as if somebody had poured ice-cold water down my spine. And that's my sign. And I still have it. And so when the people come for single sessions, and they say, if they see me reaching back, because I do instinctively, when this cold shower takes place, they know that I'm really in tune with my high C, and they can trust it. So I always suggest that you ask for a sign, and that various people have had different signs. Some people will get it prickles in their fingers, or in their third eye, or across their lips. You will always get a sign if you ask for it.
How were you able to share your experiences about Baba with your family? And how did they react when you talked about Baba?
So how were you able to share your experiences with your family about Baba, and how did they react, positively, negatively?
Okay. Well, I had a husband and two daughters. My husband, as I told you, along with Jack Hislop, were the ones who made the guidelines for the foundation here in the States. So he didn't need an introduction. I had the two daughters, and they grew up with the method I was being shown. So it was very easy for them just to slip over into Baba's teachings and accept them, because they were so similar. So there was no problem with them. But with my grandchildren, my younger daughter was killed in a car accident when her daughter was 3 and her son was 8 months. And so that was a big shock to the family. But the family into which she married did not believe in Baba, did not have any religious tendencies at all, and thought that we were crazy, and obviously did not want me to tell the children about either my work or Baba. So I absolutely didn't say a word on purpose, unless they asked, and then I would just say as little as I could. But they both thanked me now, because now that I haven't pushed it, they have come around and are very much into Baba, and I've been able to take them to him. And Baba urges us, don't advertise me. I can do a very good job on my own. Remember, he said that in an interview once, and we were so amused. So he urges us not to advertise him, but let our life show other people the effect of the teachings. As he says, his life is his message, and our life should be his message too. And therefore, we don't have to tell anyone. And maybe, I know most of you who've gone to Baba for the first time, you're all lit up, you feel his love, you want to share it. And I call this the champagne period. And we're all tempted to tell all our friends, all our family, and urge them to believe this, to go see Baba or read the books. That is fatal. They are not going to be interested because they're being pushed. I always say, wait till they ask and then tell them. And only tell them until you see their eyes glaze over. Or they will kind of fidget, and then you know you've said enough. And if you continue that way, eventually they might come around. But you see, you can't control them, and you can't really force them. It's better to say nothing.
When we do service projects or service, and think that we are God's instruments, how can we protect ourselves from becoming proud and not do the service from our own ego?
Oh, yeah, that was a long one. I didn't hear all of it.
When we do service and think that we are God's instrument, how can we protect ourselves so that we do not become proud?
Okay. I think a lot of people can't manage that because a lot of people have been brought up with such a low self-image that when they're shown that they can do something in the world, then they begin to get ego involved and proud. I think the only thing we can do is just to say to Baba or the God Self or whatever you want to call it, I will be your instrument. And then you know that you are being used. You are the instrument. You are not the originator. You're not the doer. Because Baba says we should not be the doer. He's the doer, or the God Self that is our real self is the doer. And if we can remember that, then we can get around that problem, because it's always a big one.
Can you tell us how better nutrition can help us and sleep? So maybe the sleep problems.
Can you tell us how better nutrition can help us and help sleep? There might be sleep problems.
The what problems?
Sleep.
I think there are a lot of doctors here today. I would rather defer to them. I think I told you what Baba did about my diet, and I really fought him because I wanted to do what he was telling everybody else to do. But he does, in the Sealing on Desires program, where he gave me a whole interview explaining it, he said that we should balance. We should have enough protein and enough carbohydrates and figure out what would be the right quantity for each, just as we do for sleep or any other activity. So he recommends the Sattvic diet, which is the vegetarian diet, but as you see, there are exceptions. So he really puts it in our lap. We've got to figure that out ourselves with the help of nutritionists. So it's different for each person. I've always followed the recommendations of a book called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And I happen to I have blood that's O, but it's Rh negative. And so according to the book, it would be very difficult for me to be a vegetarian, but then some of the other blood types would be able to be vegetarian very easily. So I think you have to work it out according to your own type. And I was delighted to find that book, because it divides what you really, each blood type should eat, the really good things that will support that blood type. And then the next group of foods are the ones that you can have, but not every day. And then the last group are the ones that you should never have. And this has helped me a tremendous amount, because I was always wondering, with all the allergies that I have, how am I going to survive? How am I going to have enough to eat? And that's helped a lot. And it's written by Dr. Peter D'Adamo. And you can get it on Amazon.com.
Can you talk more about getting the divine energy and then keeping in constant connection with the high seat, the divine energy?
I think I got all of
I
that.
think you've gone over it, but can you talk more about getting the divine energy, and then how do you keep in constant contact with it?
Well, I think I've mentioned that I've learned to just keep tuned in and keep asking all day long, how do you want to use me now? And I might get and then follow whatever comes quickly to my mind. So I might wake up in the morning and ask, what do you want me to do today? And then an idea will come, and then I'll do it. Or I might ask, what do you want me to do this moment, right now? I've got such and such time. And then the idea will come. It's really practice. You're not going to be perfect at first. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. But if you keep doing it, you'll find that it will answer that question.
And do you give private interviews, and how can we reach you?
Do you give private interviews, and how can we reach you?
Oh dear. I do give private interviews, yes. I try not to give too many when I'm traveling, because I usually do a seminar, and I prefer that the people hear what comes up in the seminar. And also my time is very limited when I'm traveling. But when I'm at home, I do and it's not very often I am at home, I do have one day each week, and that's Wednesday, when I do, when they're always organized by a friend of mine, and I do fit people in between, but obviously with the traveling so much, I can't give as many as I used to. So I usually like people to email me and tell me what their problem is, and then I try to take the people who are more urgent. Otherwise, I recommend that they get in touch with someone else in their country or in their town. And I also sometimes do sessions over the telephone. But I try to get, the reason I've given the training sessions is to train more and more people to be able to do this work, so that I don't have to answer all the requests. So I've given one training program for 2 years, and I'm in the middle of the second one, and apparently I hear that there's a waiting line for a third one, but I explain to the people who are organizing these for me, if I were to live long enough to do the third one, by the time it was finished I would be 100 years old, and I'm not sure I'm going to be capable of finishing that. But that's not in my hands, that's in Barbara's or the High Chief's hands.
And then lastly is to lead us through the Maypole exercise.
Okay. All right. The first thing is practical one, and that is to uncross your legs if you have them crossed one over the other. Now the reason for that is that when you cross one leg over the other, you cut off the flow of energy, And we are going to be asking the high sea or Baba for certain kinds of energy. And so you don't want to cut it off. So uncross your legs so that your feet are on the ground. Now this does not apply if you're in the lotus position. Then the energy is not cut off. But you're not any of you in the lotus position, but if you do yoga and are in the lotus position, you don't have to worry. So that's the first practical. And when you're going to receive something, and we're going to be asking to receive from the high sea or the Baba self, usually you put your hands out to receive, like little cups. So have your hands loosely in your lap so that you can receive. Then when I'm going to be suggesting that you send Baba's love or the high sea love to other people, then you will use a different hand mudra. Then you will put your palms together in the prayer or namaste mudra, and you will point your fingers to the people that you know, and as I designate, groups of people, and then around the world. So first you receive, and then you send. And then you can keep your eyes open, or you can close them, whichever is more comfortable for you. So now we will do the maypole, but not really the maypole. We will be using Baba instead. And so you imagine that you have made a contact by a ribbon or a wire or a ray of light connecting your heart with Baba's heart. And really see it or feel it or think it so that it's very real for you. This is your first step, because we're going to use Baba instead of the top of the maypole, because the top of the maypole represents the Baba self. And then we're going to ask that he give us, and that means the one inside of you, exactly what you need while we're doing this today. So you've got your ribbon connecting your heart with Baba's heart. And now ask Baba or your high sea to give you whatever he or it knows you need right now. And because you're asking, you will receive whatever it is he knows you need. It may not be as quick as you would like it, but it will be always at the right time, when you are ready to receive it. So take a moment to ask whatever you want, whatever you need to verify or request. And then we will ask for relaxing energy to flow via your ribbon or the wire connecting you to Baba, and just breathe it in. Ask for the relaxing energy. We all need relaxing energy. We live in such a tension-producing world that we desperately need to be relaxed, and this is a wonderful way to relax. So ask for the relaxing energy to flow across your ribbon or your wire from Baba's heart to your heart, and breathe it in. And as you breathe out, just let your breath out with a little sigh to release the tension, and then take another breath of the relaxing energy, and then let your breath out with a slight sigh again to release it, and feel as if the tension is running out through your fingers and your toes, and you're becoming more relaxed. And now one more deep breath, breathing in the relaxing energy and really letting go of tension as you breathe out. Sometimes I suggest that people blow it out so that you're really letting go. So one more deep breath, and see how more relaxed you feel. When you ask, it will be given to you. So ask for the relaxing energy, breathe it in, and let go of tension. Just feel as if it's draining out of you. And next we'll ask for healing energy to flow via our ribbon from Baba's heart to your heart, to heal anything that is ready to be healed in you. But mostly to get rid of the control of the condition over you. Because Baba says that yes, he has pains, he has problems, but he doesn't let them get in the way. So ask for the healing energy to flow into you. Again, breathe it in. And as you breathe out, let go of the control of any condition within you. And many psychosomatic conditions can be released that way. And sometimes actual sicknesses or illnesses or physical problems. It depends upon your karma. So one more deep breath, breathing in the healing energy and letting go of the control of any particular condition over you. If you're ready to let go of it, if you've learned what you had to learn from it. And next we'll ask for cleansing energy. Feel as if you're breathing in a wonderfully cleansing stream. Breathe it in and let it flow through you. And as you breathe out, let go of all of the things you're carrying with you from the past. All of the negative happenings, all of the quarrels, all of the jealousies, all of everything that's in the past. Because we cannot do anything about the past. It's gone. We can not do anything directly about the future. But as we live each day under the direction of the High Sea or the God Self or the Baba Self, each day will be like a stepping stone into a much more positive future. But first of all, we need to breathe in the cleansing energy to flow through us, and we need to let go in a sigh all of the old negative memories from the past. There's nothing you can do about them. If you hold on to them, they poison you. So it's time to let go of them. All of the problems, all of the shocks, all of the disagreements, all of the quarrels, just let go of them. They're gone. Don't let them poison the present. And anything else, any negative feelings, any negative habits. You were asking about anger and lust. This is a good opportunity. Just let go. And anything else that comes to your mind, envy, jealousy, greed, whatever comes up that's negative, just let go as you breathe out. And then quickly breathe in the wonderfully cleansing energy from the High Sea or the God Self or the Baba Self. It's a wonderful way of doing an internal cleansing. We clean our bodies, we clean our houses, we keep everything around us clean, but we do not keep the cleansing, the cleaning from the past. It still hovers over us in our memory. So just let go of it. And next we will ask for strengthening energy. So many people constantly say, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm near burnout. When we keep saying that, it makes it so. Then we will be tired, we will be burnt out. We've got to forget that we're tired and instead ask for the strengthening energy from the High Sea or from Baba. So feel as if you're asking Baba to send you strengthening energy, breathe it in and let go of any thought of being tired. And stop constantly saying I'm tired, because that re-imprints it. And then you become even more tired and it becomes a habit. So this is an opportunity to ask for the strengthening energy, breathe it in, and let go of tiredness, exhaustion, burnout, whatever you want to call it. And really let go. And next we will ask for the wonderful love that we can receive from the high sea. It doesn't judge. It doesn't criticize. It accepts you exactly the way you are. It's not love that we've been experiencing. Most of it is conditional love. This is unconditional love. No strings attached. No conditions necessary. The high sea accepts you just the way you are. And this is such a great gift for many of us who've not been accepted the way we are. And so breathe that in and let go of a low self-image, any feelings of guilt. This is our heritage. This is what we have brought with us. This gift from our real self. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to deserve it. You only have to ask for it. And remember, it's unconditional. So it's not something we're used to. It's what we feel when we go and see Baba. He has unconditional love for us, but we're not quite used to it, most of us. So it's a real surprise that we can receive it without going to see him. Don't get attached to his body. Make contact in your heart right now. Ask for the unconditional love to flow to you via your ribbon or your wire. Breathe it in and let go of guilt, low self-image, feeling of not deserving it, whatever is blocking it. Just let go as you breathe out. And just 2 or 3 more deep breaths and see what it feels like. It can fill all the empty spaces so many of us have within us. So breathe it in and really believe it. This is the love we all need. When we have this kind of love, we can love others, and you will find that others will love us. So 1 or 2 more deep breaths. Breathing in the love that's unconditional, that we can only receive from the high sea or the God Soul. We can look for it from other people outside of us. We will not be satisfied. We can only be satisfied with the love from our own high self. And now, in order to keep it life-supporting, it has to move. We can't hold on to it and keep it for ourselves selfishly. We have to be willing to share it with others. So first of all, see which people you know personally come to your mind right now. They might be relatives. They might be neighbors. They might be co-workers. They might be people who serve you. Friends, acquaintances. See who comes to your mind. And particularly invite people you don't like or people you think have done something wrong to you. People you don't like or people you think don't like you. Because the relationship between you will change if you're willing to send this kind of love to them, unconditional. So see who comes to your mind, and then when you have gathered an unseen number of guests whom you know personally, then put your palms together with fingers extended and think of the person, visualize each one if you can, and just point your fingers to each one and then move quickly on to the next one. You're not sending your love, you're just directing the love from the high sea or the God Self to each one. Unconditional love, which is what everyone's been looking for, seeking that all their lives, and not receiving it, because we can only get it from within. So just continue for a few more moments, directing this love as you breathe it in from Baba or your high C, and then direct it to everyone who comes into your mind that you know personally. And I'll be quiet while you do that. You can continue when you go home, and it will make a huge difference in your life if you repeat this. So now, just relax again, and this time, see what groups of people come to your attention, where the people comprising the group desperately need this kind of love. For instance, people in prisons, people in hospitals, children in orphanages, people in homeless camps, refugees, people anywhere who are in a group in one place where they're lonely, feel unloved, maybe sick, maybe depressed. There are many such groups throughout the world. See which ones come to your attention. And then, with your palms together again, just to think of the group, put your palms together, point your fingers to each one, and move quickly on to the next ones. And you can take care of many groups in just a few moments. And I'll be quiet while you do that again. And now relax again with your palms turned up, ready to continue to receive from the high C or the God Force or the Baba Self. And this time, you all watch television or your computers or you read the newspaper, and we're always being bombarded with all the negativity, all the problems that are happening, hurricanes, volcanoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, riots, violence, everywhere in the world. We're being bombarded as we've never been before because of all the new devices. So ask which ones you need to send this love to right now. Where in the world is this love needed? This is a way you can help change the world, by sending this love from the high C or the Baba love, the Christ love, whatever you want to call it, unconditional love, and send it anywhere in the world where you see it's needed. Think of some of the scenes you've seen on the news, on the media. That will give you an indication of where it's needed. And just take one at a time, and then move on to the next one. You're not sending your love. That would not be adequate, because that's conditional. This is unconditional love. And everyone in the world desperately needs it, and has been seeking it all their life, everywhere. Some mostly not knowing that they are seeking it. Therefore, they can't express it. And now relax again with your hands up in your lap, your palms up in your lap. And this time, I'm going to share with you what my little granddaughter taught us long ago when she was between 2 and 3 years of age. She's now grown and she knows I share this and she loves it that I do. When something very nice had happened, or she was very happy, she had a wonderful little trick. She would put her arms around herself as if she were hugging herself, and she'd jump up and down in one place and say, "I'm so happy, I love me." We all need to love ourselves. We can bring about many changes in our lives and in our characters if we do it with love, not if we do it with criticism or harshness. So if you feel like it, put your arms around yourself as if you were hugging yourself. And just inside your head, say, "I love me." But really mean it. This will help anyone with a low self-image. Just, "I love me." And now, just say it out loud, all together. "I love me." Well, that was not really a very good effort. Let's have a little stronger. "I love me." All right, one more time, really loud, really meaning it. "I love me." That's better. Now, let's thank Baba, or the High C, or the God Self, for everything you've received up till now, and everything you will be receiving whenever you ask. And then just start to uncurl. Move your arms, your legs, arch your back, move your head, come back to full awareness of being in this room in Santa Ana. Great, on this second day, thank you, second day of January, New Year, so that we can celebrate the New Year in a wonderful new way, asking for the love from the High Sea, and then giving it to other people wherever we are. So thank you for being such a wonderful group of people here with whom I can share, and thank you for asking me, and I wish you all not just Sairam, but a very happy 2011.
Thank you.
I can't help but thanking Swami one more time for sending us Phyllis Krystal and letting her be the instrument herself. So many of us all over the world. And thank you, Phyllis, again, for coming back home, at least in Southern California for a while. Boy, do we love you.
I want to say, I don't have a microphone now. Oh, here it is. I would like to say it's been a real pleasure. It's been wonderful coming back to Southern California with so many people I know and have known for many years. And I thank Barbara for sending me.